Hello everyone, Dr. Congratulations here and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to carry on with the conversation that we last had concerning something called bacterial infections. All right, a number of people reached out to me and asked me to carry on with this, and that is just what we're going to do. And so yes, before we go ahead, guys, you know the drill. I don't need to remind you. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop a comment, hit that notification bell. All right, I want you to be notified when I post the next video. All right, back to our subject matter. We did talk about this thing called bacterial infections, especially in the context of people that are living and practicing medicine within Uganda. And you guys do realize by now from our previous conversation that this thing called bacterial infection is actually not an acceptable diagnosis in medicine. For anyone who has gone to medical school or who has had professional health training, you will realize that there is just too many bacterial infections out there for you to walk into a hospital and walk out of the hospital with a diagnosis of bacterial infection, quote unquote. Bacterial infection. All right, so guys, there has to be a name to that infection. Okay, there has to be a name. And now I know by experience that so many of us are giving ourselves, so many patients out there are giving themselves this diagnosis and actually initiating themselves on treatment. How unfortunate, guys. But apart from that, there is even health workers that are doing it as well, and that is even the more unfortunate bit of this. Okay, now bacterial infections, like I said, are so many: TB, cholera, gonorrhea, name it. All these are bacterial infections. It could be just pneumonia, it could be a throat infection, it could be an ear infection. There is so many bacterial infections that if you walked into a hospital and someone told you have a bacterial infection, they should be able to tell you what or which part of your body is the infection localized in. All right, and now again with the term bacterial infection in blood, again I will repeat this: if you did have bacteria in your blood, guys, that would automatically mean that the blood would carry the bacteria to your brain, blood would carry the bacteria to your heart, to your lungs, to your liver, to your kidneys, to every major organ, and it would be absolutely an emergency. So for you to think that you have bacteria roaming around in your blood and you're walking the streets normally, with just a simple cough, guys, so many of us are being misinformed. And get this from me: bacterial infections have to be given a name, or you have to get a focus of infection. All right, anything short of that, there is hardly ever any justification as to why you should find yourself on antibiotics. And I'm bringing up now this particular bit of antibiotics because it affects you and I in so many ways that some of you cannot even begin to fathom. The point is, because we are using antibiotics incorrectly, because we are being given wrong diagnosis, or we're giving ourselves wrong diagnosis, we now risk a lot of resistance in terms of antibiotics. I'll tell you what, when I was a child, we used chloroquine to treat malaria. Terrible drug. I would have itching all over my body. All right, I don't miss it at all. We were so lucky that at the point when chloroquine was becoming ineffective, or malaria, the parasites were becoming resistant to chloroquine, there was a breakthrough in terms of the artemisinin-based therapies, the Coartem, the artesunate, and all those. Now, just imagine a scenario where chloroquine had become ineffective and we had no other option. How many kids, how many African children, how many Ugandans out there would have died because of just malaria? Now, take you fast forward. TB, case in point. Now we have what we call drug-resistant TB. we have what we call multi-drug resistant TB, we have what we call extensive drug resistance in terms of TB. So you can see that more and more bacteria are becoming more resistant to the antibiotics that we would ideally use. All right, this then means that healthcare will eventually become more expensive. Why? Because when the bacteria become resistant to the simple antibiotics, what then happens? We have to use stronger antibiotics. Now these stronger antibiotics come with a price tag. Okay, now we have antibiotics out there that cost as much as 6,000 Uganda shillings per tablet. Okay, this is probably just a little under $2, or roughly, let's say $2 per tablet. For a Ugandan out there, that is really expensive. That is not even your full dose. All right, now if we are going to continue misusing the antibiotics, that is the trend we are taking, and that is where we are headed. It then means that your simple UTI, urinary tract infection, will need a longer time for treatment and will need much more expensive and much more stronger antibiotics. Okay, drugs come with side effects, and these drugs, of course, have financial implications to them. All right, now, is that a trend that we want to take? I do not think so. Do we have things that we need to change? There's definitely a lot. First of all, as like I've said, we need to stop self-medicating, especially with antibiotics. Guys, listen, drugs like antibiotics are supposed to be prescription-only medications. All right, and it is not every health worker that should prescribe antibiotics. You should be aware that not every health worker is trained to prescribe. Not every health worker has the mandate to prescribe, even by law. Okay, so you don't just walk up to any health worker, whether they're a nurse, whether they're a records attendant, and ask for a prescription. There are certain health workers that are meant to prescribe certain drugs. There are certain drugs that are meant to be used under prescription only. There are certain drugs that are over the counter, so you could walk into a clinic and pick it up and that's it. But drugs like antibiotics, unfortunately, in Uganda, we have access. Okay, you could simply walk into a pharmacy and say, I want this drug and this drug, and you have the money, you get it, which should not be the case. So, first things first, let's restrain ourselves from overly using antibiotics even when we do not need them. Okay? Let's restrain ourselves from self-prescription. And to the health workers out there, if there is no focus of infection, if there is no evidence of infection apart from a full blood count that shows just a little raise in white cell count, I would think we should not rush to the antibiotics, because in the end we are over prescribing, we are over diagnosing, and we are misusing the antibiotics. And in the long run, the effects of this in our communities, the effects of this on our socio-economic growth, the effects of this antimicrobial resistance that is, building up day by day will be much more than we might be able to take. All right? So, guys, stick to prescriptions. Get to the hospital, get a consultation, and use the drugs rightly.